I actually was quite taken, perhaps people not find this surprising, with some very bright displays that happen to be mini LED in nature. Basically displays with very, very many dimming zones, able to hit very, very high brightness levels, often based on VA panel technology or IPS panel technology there. And yeah, I saw some really, really impressive mini LED panels. I just think it's a great combination of really intense brightness, really deep, nice pitch black blacks there as well as very large panel sizes without any kind of...
It's like 106 and 115 is like the biggest ones we saw.
Yeah, the number one standout mini LED TV for me was the TCL 115QM.
That's what it was.
Yeah, 891G, which is not a new TV. It's actually a 2024 model year TV, I found out. And I thought it looked absolutely amazing. It had very minimal backlight blooming, just incredible backlight control for a mini LED panel. It got incredibly bright, far brighter than you get from any kind of OLED panel, especially in very bright content where OLEDs tend to have aggressive ABL automatic backlight limiting.
Yes.
This did not have that issue. We also saw some Hisense TVs that did look impressive. Some were in a similar range of size there. But I did find that TCL very, very impressive. The only downside, and I did not know this when I was looking at it on the show floor, but the price tag in the United States at least is $27,000. So
nope.
not a very cheap TV, but what did you make of the various mini LED spectacle panels on display?
That was the best one.
Yeah.
I agreed with you on that. And I was also pretty happy with the black levels and the minimal blooming.
Yeah.
Obviously, like persistence is a different question in itself too, but that wasn't what the demo was about. That was being run. And the image quality was good too. We'll talk about image quality on other sets later.
Yeah.
These were good. I liked them quite a bit, actually.
And there was also Sony was there. They weren't really showing off too many new TVs, at least that we saw, but they were showing off some LED panels running Lego Horizon Adventures on PlayStation 5. Very exciting stuff. They also had some Lego models on display, and they had a massive stage with some DJs and some poorly frame-paced content.
Yeah, some poorly that might have been AI gen stuff.
Something to do with
it was
AI.
some sort of, and it was pretty awkward, honestly. It was really weird, but whatever. These are some of these booth things that they do.
Yeah.
Some presentations and some kind of bad music.
Yeah, and Samsung also tried to pull some interesting stuff with like an art gallery themed.
Oh, that was maybe a bit more interesting, maybe.
Marginally more interesting, but not really a lot of interest there for me and Alex in terms of technologies. But there were a lot of micro LED televisions. Now, Alex, did we come away with a positive impression of micro LED televisions or a negative impression of micro LED televisions?
Pretty negative, actually.
Okay.
So I think the idea is like micro LED is hyped because we want to find something to maybe be a future replacement for OLED at some point.
Because
right?
it's like super bright, but also emissive. You get that perfect black levels. You get that great control, per pixel control.
Yeah.
That's the idea, at least.
Yeah, that's the idea. And these were all rather large sets, too. Don't forget that.
Very large.
Very large. So I guess you were getting like that good black and really high brightness. So something you would, like, it was these things that you wouldn't necessarily get on other panels. But, oh man, the image quality was bad. It was really bad on every single set, essentially. In some way, like one thing you would see is that you would see like that they're comprised of smaller like tiles.
Yeah.
And there was the tile lines were like incredibly obvious. So you had tile lines, and then you also had the space between pixels was really big, and you could see the RGB elements.
Yeah.
And they looked 1080p.
Yeah.
Didn't they look 1080p?
Yeah, there must be some quite significant. I mean, I can even make out the particular array of the RGB here. With the subpixel structure. But no, the dot pitch was not very good. They are made out of I think they're made out of these little kind of micro LED panels. And when you stick them together, you can totally see the seams. You can even see them sometimes from a reasonable distance. And the seams aren't totally uniform. Like some of them blend together pretty well.
and others
but
don't.
some of them don't look
It's like the
put together pretty
manufacturing
well.
isn't consistent
Yeah,
almost.
it's not quite there. I have to say that the micro LED televisions disappointed me quite a bit.
I think I even said like this sucks.
This sucks.
I was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't imagine like buying this and having it
No.
in your house. They had like one that was ridiculously large,
Yeah.
and it was like so ugly. Like when you were near it, like you would have to be really far from this to like have enough blur in your vision to not see the issues.
The largest one they showed off was, I think, 163 inches,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, you're seeing the footage here. It is an almost unfathomably large size television that you would have only, of course, you could always achieve extremely large panel sizes of a sort through projectors, but you know, projector brightness and projector image characteristics are nothing like this, but also the image characteristics of these panels, I did not find them very favorable. We also saw some OLED panels in the show. Unfortunately, we did not get a chance to take a look at the new LGs, although I do understand the new LG televisions were at the show.
Yeah.
But there were some very interesting, actually from a few different vendors, but most prominently from LG, there were these 45-inch 800R curved Ultra Gear OLEDs
Yeah.
that were set up with a certain racing game demo that perhaps you want to talk about a little bit,
Yeah, this
Alex.
was Assetto Course.
It's Assetto Corsa Competizione.
No, competizione. And yeah, these demos didn't like. I thought the drive control they were set up as like, you know, like drive simulators, right, with like feedback,
Force feedback.
and like pedals and whatnot. So that was compelling, but I'm pretty sure these were like they were high refresh rate, ultra wide OLEDs, and I'm pretty sure the game itself wasn't super impressive looking, unfortunately. So, and it also didn't look like HDR was another issue. If even this game supports HDR, I do not know. And also, it looked like VRR was not on, and it was unlocked.
Yeah.
So it was just like jittery, right? Like it could have been a way better demo, and I just want to slightly tangent off into monitor sins. Can I talk about monitor sins?
Well, before we talk about monitor sins, I wanted to completely echo what you said about about this demo, because I think that Assetto Corsa Competizione, I actually did cover it on consoles back, 3 years ago now. I'm feeling a little old. I just turned 30, by the way, 2 days ago.
Don't tell them that.
So starting to feel my age, unfortunately, here. But yeah, Assetto Corsa Competizione, it's not a bad looking game, but it's also not the best looking racing title out there. I'd suggest personally something like F1 24 might be a really good PC demo with all those ray tracing technologies in there. Of course, one surefire way to have a good looking PC demo is to engage VRR. That is often a good decision there. They did not make that decision. I do believe this panel supports HDR. I don't think HDR was enabled. Perhaps it was, though, because it supports True Black 400.
So it could have just been low.
Which is a pretty low standard for HDR. I don't know exactly how bright it gets in HDR highlights, but possibly not very bright. Now, Alex actually did a pretty good job keeping things on track. I was not as lucky as you can see here. I ended up in the wall pretty quick.
Yeah, I was taking it slow though. I wasn't going so fast.
But that does move us on to some monitor sins, because there was another 45-inch OLED with a curve there, and it was running a certain other title. And there were some other instances perhaps around the show floor that maybe you can talk about.
Yeah,
where we saw some extreme monitor and display sins, where basically people were showing off displays, some of them quite good displays.
Like this one looked good actually on like other technical levels, but they're just showing it off so wrong.
Showing it off incorrectly with content that's not right for the display, with certain features on the television that aren't flattering. So these were very nice panels in some instances, but they were let down by certain poor content choices, whether that came down to putting content on there in a manner where you're stretching it. That's a big no-no.
Like this one right here, it's GT7, right?
GT7, yeah.
Running, which is a 16:9 game, running on an ultra wide. It also looked low res for some reason. I have no idea why. Probably because it's the extreme stretching. It just did not look good. And also, this is more than a 60 hertz display. It was also running at 60 hertz.
Yeah.
Like why? We also saw Spider-Man running at like 30
30
FPS with no
FPS.
motion blur in a recording that constantly dropped to like 15 and stuttered. And it was mirrored across 3 displays at once.
Yeah.
And it looked awful. And it was also stretched or whatever, I think. I don't know. And then we also saw Tekken being showed off, a game at 60 FPS. But it was also running motion interpolation and
Yeah,
looked so
it was
bad.
on LG C5, which is kind of their new lower end OLED this year. I think it's a 144 hertz panel.
Yeah.
So interpolated up to 144 hertz did not look very good. If it had just been run natively at 60, that would probably look pretty decent. But yeah, it was just a weird
It didn't look
choice.
good. We also saw another one we saw earlier. I think it might have been at the SUS display. Was also a 4K 240 hertz HDR panel that was locked to 1080p 60, and I changed it to 120 at 1080p.
120, yeah.
And I was like, so they had a monitor there that was 4K 240, but was only running at 1080p 60. So like that was a common thing across the floor, and John's talked about this before, where you go to a place and they're running like games with like awful sharpening and tons of post-processing not in game mode. And here it wasn't just that, it was like wrong format, wrong color space, wrong whatever, wrong content, really bad. So if you're going to show off your stuff, please show it off at like the proper display, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of these displays, they're, high-end stuff, ultra-high refresh rates. That Ultra Gear we talked about is actually a 5K display, believe it or not. Yeah, over 5,000 horizontal pixels. Very, very impressive stuff in some respects, at least. And they could certainly do a better job exhibiting that monitor and showing it off in its best light. Yeah. For sure.